All right, good morning. It looks like we have got 4 right now. So like we've been doing, I'm going to wait and right at 5 after. And just so you know, we will be done by lunchtime today. Okay. But I'm going to pause the video right now and I'll pick it back up in 5 minutes at 9:05. I'll see you then. All right, good morning, everybody. This is the last day, and if you didn't hear this already, if you just joined us, we will be done, I believe at least, by lunchtime today, if not even earlier. Now, I want to mention something. I'm going to show the 3 websites that I've been sent so far. All right, and then I'll have something to say about them. But before I do that, I'm going to come in here and I want to make sure, because one person, you know who you are. I'm not going to say anything, but one person, I don't think that you saved your stuff correctly. So I want to run through all the steps with you again. So I'm just going to come out here and I'm going to go to sites and I'm going to click create a new site. And I'm just going to call this demo because that's all this is going to be. It's going to be a simple demo and I'll use the Mobirise AMP. All right, and I'm going to add a blank page. It says, do I want to create it based on this? Yes, so that's okay. Now there's right now, this is what's on there. In other words, there's basically nothing. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just add a couple things. I'm going to add their stuff. It's going to look pretty ugly, but it's okay. So I'll throw this menu in here. I'll throw this thing in here, this header. I'll throw these features in here. I'll come down and throw in, I don't know, how about a video? And let's come down, some contact us. We'll put in a social media and I'll throw a quick little, on the bottom, a quick little footer. All right, so there's footer. I'll just throw this one in. Okay, so if I look at it right now, it doesn't look like mine, I mean, because you can see I just dragged and dropped a bunch of stuff out there. I know you get this. All right. The other thing I want to do is I want to quickly, now that I've got this, I want to go in and I want to show you the steps that you should go through when you're saving this. Okay, so it's just called demo. I should always go first and preview it in the browser. So I'm going to go and click preview in the browser, and here it is. Again, it doesn't look like something I did because it isn't. It's just a bunch of stuff I dragged in. And I think that should make sense to everyone. So that's okay. Now it's open in the browser. I don't need it open in the browser. So I'm just going to click right there. So boom, now it's not open in the browser anymore. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next, and I'm going to do a reshare on my screen. So I'm just going to tell it to do the screen. Hopefully you'll be able to see all this. So I'm going to come, can somebody answer? Can you see my granddaughter right here, her picture on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to right mouse click, make a new folder that I'm just going to call demo. Same name as my project name. So there it is. You can see no tricks or anything. There's nothing in there. All right, so then I'm going to go back into Mobirise. All right, and I'm going to say publish. And when I say publish, it says, where do you want to publish it to? You want to choose local drive folder here. And then you have to basically tell it where it is. It's easiest to just click browse and then find on my desktop, find demo. There it is. So I selected demo, click select folder and tell it to publish. And boom, it opens it up again in here. I don't need this open, so I can close it. But the point is this. All right, the point is this. Now in my demo, all right, now I've got this. You should have a folder. If you only made one page, you'll have index.html. Some of you put more than one page in there, which is fine. And if I double click on this, there's my my site that I just showed you. All right. Now, if you've done all that, so I'm supposing that you did all that, You right mouse click on this, you choose send to, it might be different on your computer, and you click compressed or zip folder. Now I've got a demo.zip. And hopefully you know how to go in and do your emailing. I'm not going to show you that because it's different on everybody's computer. You do it differently on a Mac as opposed to a Linux machine, as opposed to a Windows, and it might be different based on the browser that you have. My question is there anything that I just did that does not make sense to anyone? If there is, if it doesn't make sense, please ask. All right, so I'm taking for granted then that you can all do this if indeed that's what you want to send me a copy. So going back then, and again, I'm just going to make sure that it's going to be right here, and I'm going to do a share. Can you see the Adorable Guinea Pigs website here? Somebody answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one that was created so far. And as you can see, there's a slideshow in it, very nice. All right, you come through here, you've got some writing in here. There's even a read more where you go off to another page. You open it in a new window, which is nice. All right, there is a video in here. And when you bring up the video, you could even make it full screen if you want to, which again is nice. All right, and there's a form in here. I'm not sure if the form goes anywhere or not, Esme, I'm not sure, but either way, it's fine. It's a very nice site. It looks real nice. All right. And you can see that you can go around. So you can jump to the contact us. You can jump to the video. You can jump to the article, etc. So it's very nice. So that's one that will go out there on the actual website that I'm going to create next week. Then I got sent this one, another nice site. All right, that's on cats. All right, and let's see. Is it Charisma? I want to pronounce your name right. Is that correct? Okay, well, maybe she is, maybe they're not here. But the point is, notice it's kind of neat. And they've even got it set up that if you click on one of these, you get the bigger picture. That's nice. All right, you can click view more and go to another page. All right, you can click all about cats or here rather and go to the main page. And they've got, this is called an accordion in here. So you click on it and it shows you information. You click on it again and it disappears. See that? And that's kind of neat. All right. And you've got some other stuff in here. Again, a very nice site. All right. There was one more that I was sent, and you know who you are. I'm not going to try to make fun of anybody. It's a fine site, but you sent it to me as two different things. Since they're not loaded, my guess is that this site right now is incomplete. All right. But you've got to do it the way that I showed it to you, the way that I just showed it in class. And if you do that, then hopefully you're not going to have any problems. All right. Now, I'm going to show you two things right now. The first is what we're going to do this morning is we're going to go over this package called Bootstrap. I had my choice when I went over Bootstrap with you that I could either go to the actual Bootstrap website and show it to you from there, or I could use, as we've been doing these tutorials. Well, they're both very similar to one another. All right. And so what I decided to do, all right, was I decided to use this tutorial just because of the fact that it's got so many things in there with a try it yourself. We're not going to go through all of them. That would be silly to do. But their documentation, when I originally showed you the documentation, it is for what is called Bootstrap 5. That's the newest version of Bootstrap. All right. The one that I have been teaching in class is version 4. Now, when you go to a different number like that, not like, there's a number before a decimal place and a number after a decimal place. So in other words, if I go from Bootstrap 4.1 to to Bootstrap 4.2, it's not usually a really big change. But when the number before the decimal changes, if that changes, it's a really big change. I have done absolutely nothing with Bootstrap 5, nothing. All right, it's literally only been out for a couple of months. So what I'm going to show you today is Bootstrap 4 and not Bootstrap 5. All right, there are lots of free tutorials and a lot of other stuff online for those. All right, the other thing that I want to mention to you is I'm going to push something out right now that you'll be able to, like you did the other day. I'm going to give you a URL and you'll be able to go out there and grab a you'll be able to go out there and grab a zip file. But I want to show you, I'm actually going to kind of build this for you and show it to you in steps, but I want to show you the final file. And it's right here. And it may not look that great. There's not much in it. There is, as you can see at the top, we do have a menu and a header area up here. This thing here, you're going to learn in just a minute. It's called a Jumbotron. All right. And then we've got some stuff, and you can see there's a little bit of animation in there. And I can click and I can go to different pages, etc. I can do that. I didn't even, and there's a very, very simple footer on the bottom when it says Jeff Scott Inc. 2021, and it's got Ranken Technical Colleges, Facebook page, Twitter page, and Google Groups page. All right. It's also got another page in it. Oh, well, that isn't good. We'll have to look at that real quick, but we'll get it fixed. I'm not worried about it. All right. There's a second page, and there's a very simple little contact form right here. So I'm going to show this to you, and I'm going to show it to you in pieces. What do I mean by saying I'm going to show it to you in pieces? I have a folder out there, and I call this folder Bootstrap Example in 13 Steps, because that's what I did. All right. And I want to show you right now, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to save what I've got here on my desk, on my desktop, how I'm going to save it out to the cloud and make it available for each and every one of you. All right. So the way that I do that is I actually use a package, and the package that I use is called GitHub. So if I go out to github.com, all right, I don't want to go there. I just want to go to github.com. Now, this is the way it's going to look if you go out there. I believe you have to be 18 or above to get a GitHub account. I don't really know. It's in their documentation somewhere. But notice there's 65 million people who are using it. So it's been around a while, etc. But if you want to know whether or not you can sign up for an account like this to do what I'm about to show you, put in your email address and sign in. But I would look first to see if they do have anything in there. In fact, we could even do this. I'll put in here age requirement for a GitHub account. All right, so it says 13 or older. So hopefully all of you are teenagers. And if you are, fine. If you're not a teenager, you should be able to, if you would want to, ask a parent to sign up for you. All right. But when you go out here, again, I'm going to do it one more time. When you go out here to github.com, all right, like this. Now, I've already got an account, so I can go to sign in. All right. And I can put in my name, which is JP Scott Ranken. All right. And if I do that, the problem is I forgot my password right now. All right. But I should be able to go in there then and sign in. All right. And what I'm telling you is, again, I could create a new account, etc. Typically, when it comes in here, I thought I kept it where I could stay signed in, but maybe I didn't do that. I was too stupid to do that, I guess. Usually they have like cheats here that you can get in, but it's okay because I want to show you, and we might have to wait until we go on the break because I'm going to have to go and since I forgot my password, I'm going to have to go and get a new password, etc. It's not that big a thing. All right. But what I want to show you is what I have to do on my desktop, all right, to get it ready to push it out to GitHub, which is out in the cloud. which means that somewhere GitHub has got some servers, which are some real powerful computers that they've got out there that can be used. All right. And we can use them for free. All right. So I come in here, and right now there are these 13 steps in here. Okay. Plus, and we don't need these. I put in some cheat sheets for you. If you don't know what those are, you can open them up later. It's not a big thing. All right. But what I want to do then is I got to get this ready. So I'm going to use something that's called Git. And Git works with GitHub. They're not the same thing. Git is what I use here. GitHub is what's out in the cloud someplace. So I'm going to right mouse click on here. And I've already downloaded Git on my machine. So I choose Git bash here. All right. And really, if this doesn't make sense, don't let it bother you. I just am showing you this stuff. So if I type in right now, I'm going to get an error message on this, and I know I am. I'm going to type in Git status. So what's my current status? It says you don't have any because you don't have a Git setup with what you're working on. So I'll set one up. I type in Git init. Now I'm going to hit enter in just a second, and watch how up at the top here, there'll be a new folder that gets created that's called dot or period Git. So watch.
Oh, I think your screen is frozen at this.
All right. All right, then let's unfreeze it. Thank you. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I did a Git status, and it came back up and it said fatal error. You don't have anything associated with this. So I went in and I typed in Git init, and it made this folder right here called dot period or dot Git. Now, you don't ever want to play with that folder. That's something that Git needs to talk to GitHub. And again, don't worry about it right now. It's totally fine. I'm just showing you what I do. Then I come in here and I say, okay, now remember I typed in Git status here and I got an error because it said it didn't exist. But if I type in Git status again, now it says you've got all this stuff here in this folder that it's in red, which means it's ready for me to go and send it out to GitHub when I want to do that. So to do that, I have to tell it to add it. So I have to say git add dot, which means take all this stuff, and you're going to see in just a minute, these files that are red are going to turn to green in just a second. All right. So boom, now it added all of them. Don't worry about this. Okay. What this means, just so you know, because I mean, occasionally people see this and they're like, what is that? LF means line feed. CRLF means carriage return line feed. When you hit your enter key on some computers, what happens is a new line gets created. On some computers, it's called a line feed. And on some computers, when you hit enter, it's called a carriage return line feed. They're just letting you know that, hey, yours is a line feed. It's going to be replaced because the software expects it to be, instead of a line feed, it expects it to be a carriage return line feed. It's no big thing. It's just something that happens. All right, I'm going to clear my screen so you can see what I'm doing. And now I'm going to type in again, Git status. And now you notice all of these things are green. All right. Previously, they were all red, which meant they were ready to be what's called staged or made available, but I didn't make them available. So the commands I put in so far, when we first started, I typed in Git status. And it came back and it gave me an error message because I didn't have any status because I did not have one of these Git folders. So then I went in and typed in, Git init. That created the folder for me and made the project ready for me to work on. Then I typed in Git status again, and you saw all those files, everything that was in here, all this stuff. But it was in red. And what that meant was, hey, it's available that I can go and get it ready to send it from Git to GitHub, but it's not, I haven't made it what's called staged. I have not staged it yet. So then I went in and typed in, oops, get back here. I typed in git add dot, which meant it means take everything that's in this folder. I don't care what it is. Take every single thing that's in this folder, all right, and now make it available, stage it. It turned it from red to green, which meant I can now work with it, okay? Then I typed in another Git status to show you that indeed it was green, all right? So that's what we've done, all right? And then I cleared. That's everything that we've done. Now, everything I showed you is fine, but what I have to do then is I have to do what's called commit what I just did. So I type in git space commit space -m, because you should put a message with it. That's what that M means. If it's the first time you're committing, you typically say initial commit. Okay, and it's letting me know, yep, that's all that stuff that's going to be committed now. And again, that's totally fine. Now, if I go back and I type in Git status again, notice it says there's nothing to commit. Everything has been committed. So it is ready. It is ready now for you to send it from Git to GitHub. So to send it from my machine right here to actually out in GitHub. Now, I'm going to try one thing real quick, and I will change my screen in just a second. All right. But before I do that, all right, I am going to see if I can change my password, because I want to show you all this stuff. All right, oh my goodness. Let's see, pick the sock. Okay. Pick the sock again. Okay. Send password. All right, so let's see if it sent me that should be that little noise you heard. So I want to reset my password. Try again. I think I'll be able to sign in now. We'll see. Let's quickly check. So JP Scott Ranken is actually, that's my username on GitHub, and there's my password. Oh, good, I'm in. Terrific. Save. All right. Now, what I have to do is I already have a project that I created on my desktop. I already have this project on my desktop. You saw it, and it's called Bootstrap Example in 13 Steps. Now I've got to make an empty project like that over here in GitHub. So I click this plus sign and I choose new repository. Okay. And then I click right here and I put in Bootstrap Example in 13 Steps. If it wasn't available, I get an error message. It is available, so I make a green checkbox. There's a bunch of stuff here you can set up. You really and truly don't have to. So I click Create Repository. All right. Now it's telling me that I should go back to my machine and do a git init. I already did that. You can add a README file. I didn't. Then it says do a git commit. I already did that. If I'm going to share it with other people, not you guys, but if I was sharing it with a group of people where we could all change the original, I'd do that, but I don't have to. I need this line right here, and then we're almost ready. All right. So I've got to come back here. And if you can't see it, don't worry about it. All right. So now I should be able to say git push All right. I did this. I'm going to show you the commands that I just put in. I don't know if you can see my screen where I'm working on GitHub here in Git or not. And if you can't, I'm going to explain to you what I just did. All right. So I just put in this, and that lets GitHub, where I am right now, this thing that's out on the internet someplace, it lets it know this is the name of my project. All right. It lets it know that's its name out here. Then I have to tell it from my local machine to push that project out here. And you might say, big deal, who cares about all this stuff? Well, what I want to show you is this. Right now, there's nothing in there, but as soon as I refresh my screen, there's everything that I want you to have. So this is going to be the project that we're going to start going over in just a minute. That's it in 13 parts. Okay. And what you will be able to do, and what I'd like you to all do right now, I'm going to again change my share. So it says screen. So my question is, make it a little smaller. 36 should do. Can everybody read what's on the screen where it says https://github.com/jpranken, etc.? Can you all see this?
Yes.
All right. I will take it, and I will also, just in case someone can't, I'd like you to open up a new browser window, type that in, and hit enter. Again, it doesn't always work correctly from the chat, but I did put it in the chat just in case. But again, it's better for you to type all this in, open up a new browser window like this, and put it in. I'll get it back again. There it is. I'll give you just a minute or two to do that. And as always, if anybody has any problems with this, please let me know. Now, if you typed all that stuff in, and if it looks like this or something similar to this, that's good. You're almost there. We did this the other day, okay? And I'm hoping everybody had a chance to type it in then. And if you get this screen here, just click code and click download zip. And then you will have a copy of everything that I am about to go through with you, right? You'll have a copy of everything on your machine. I'm not going to make you do any typing today. Rather, I've got this done and I broke it down into a bunch of steps. So basically, I'm building this site using Bootstrap in 13 steps right here. So we're going to go over all 13. We're also very quickly first going to go over these cheat sheets in just 1 second. All right. Questions on anything? All right. Hopefully you had a chance to do all that. All right. Now, I'm going to again go back and change my share just to make sure hopefully everybody can see. So I'm on my screen. Again, you should see my granddaughter here. This is what we just copied. Again, you've got the Git in here, which isn't going to matter to you one way or the other, but you should have a part 1, part 2, all the way to part 13. In addition, you've got this, and I just want to show you this stuff. Let's see. Well, I don't know. There we go. Chrome. Can you see on the screen right now? I'm asking you this question. HTML5, the mega cheat sheet. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this is. So a lot of this stuff, there's more stuff in here than we covered on the first day. All right, but that's a lot of the material. That's basically, if you understand this, there's not that much more about HTML that you can't understand. Then I've got another one here. And this other one here, come on, open up. All right, it's going to make me reopen it the other way. Oh, why aren't you opening? There we go. Okay. Then we've got another one here, and this is a CSS cheat sheet. So there's a bunch of stuff there for CSS, which is what we did on day 2. Then day 3, we went through a JavaScript cheat sheet. Now you can see this is a lot longer. The other ones are a few pages. This is 29 pages. All right. And there's a lot of stuff in here we didn't talk about. We talked about the basics. We talked about variables. I mentioned arrays, but we didn't talk much about them. We did go over operators. We did go over functions and loops and if else, a little bit on strings. We didn't talk about really most any of this stuff. All right. But if you're interested, it'd give you something to look at in the future. There's also another thing that's called Jquery. We didn't go over that at all. All right. But if you want, or if you're interested, you can take a look through there and find that as well. All right, that's enough said. What I'm going to do now is between now and the break, at least, I'm going to change my share in just a second. All right. And can everybody see where it says Bootstrap 4 tutorial on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to go over all this. I mean, we could spend the rest of the day doing that. That would be silly. But there's a few things in here that I want to mention to you. I'm going to come back to these after the break. But before the break, I want to go over where it says Bootstrap 4 grid. All right. And when you work with this, it's a little quirky. It's a little different. But imagine that your screen, so anything that you're putting on a web page when you use this Bootstrap thing, okay, your screen is cut into 12 pieces. And you can proportion those pieces out any way you want. In other words, it can be one big piece. It could be 2 pieces that are each 6, 1 4 and 1 8, 3 of them that are 4. You could have had 4 of them that were 3. You could have 12 of them that are each 1. But the point is, this, what they're showing you here is what's referred to as the Bootstrap grid system. And again, it takes your page and it allows you to use up to 12 individual columns per page. You don't have to do that, but you can do that. All right. Also, this thing is automatically responsive. What does that mean, that it's automatically responsive? I want to show you. So this is, whoop, sorry, let me close that, and that, and we'll leave that up. This is what we're going to end up finally building. All right, but I'm going to take it and see if I can shrink it down, and it should still look pretty nice. So that's the way it would look on a phone. All right, this is totally responsive. Not only that, when it reached a certain point, you can see my menu up here, and my menu becomes what's called a hamburger menu. I don't know why they picked that, but somebody came up with a wise idea that this looks like a hamburger. But when I click on it, there's home, and there's about, and there's contact, for example. All right, so they're all there. But what I'm trying to get across to you is that Bootstrap is naturally responsive. So as your screen size changes, if you look at it on a phone or on a tablet or on a laptop, it should look nice on all of them, as long as you set it up correctly. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. All right. So it says the Bootstrap 4 grid system has 5 classes. All right. Now you may or may not remember, but I think it was 2 days ago. All right. Right near the end of the class, we talked a little bit about those things that are called media queries. And we made a very simple application that changed the color of what was on our screen from black to blue, to red, to green, etc., based on how wide our screen was. Hopefully you remember that. That's what they're talking about right here. So if you use just this, col with a minus, so just this, the word col, dot col, you know what dot means? It means it's a class. So dot col with a minus, that says that's the way you want it to look on a small phone, less than 576 pixels. All right. If you want it to look big, you know, this basically is a bigger small phone. All right. So it's a bigger phone, 576. Medium, this is for a laptop. I'm sorry. This is for a tablet, medium. Large is for a laptop. And extra large is if you've got a screen that's more than 1200 pixels. Now, do you understand that? I'm not even going to ask. The point is, what you can do is you can tell your screen size, once your screen size changes, you can tell Bootstrap, hey, when I get to a certain width, instead of you showing 6 and 6, when you get to a certain width, I now want it to be like this. So in other words, if I had 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, like 5 or 6 down, when I got to a certain size, it would start stacking it. And if you still don't know what I mean, it's what I was saying right here. Notice that there are 3 rows right here. That's the way it's set up. Now notice there's 1 row. So this thing was told when it got to be a certain width that I wanted it to stack. And I'm going to show you that after the break. All right. So here's the rules. I don't want to read to you. All right. It's not really that big of a thing. You do have, if you use this, and again, you know, with a period there, that means dot. The dot means it's a class. So if you use a container class, all right, that means make it look a little nice. In other words, put a little bit of margin on each side. All right, and on the top and bottom. So make it look nice. If instead of using just container, you use dot container fluid, which means you want a fluid container class, that means you want it to take up the entire width of the screen. And if you're confused, look at it this way. Right now, our content is in here. And on the sides, what do we have? Well, we've got an explanation here of all the stuff that's in here. And here we've got some advertisements. If this had said container fluid, this wouldn't show and this wouldn't show. This thing that we've got in here would take up the entire width. And that's what they're saying. All right. So they've got examples here. I'm not going to, it would be silly to run through all of them, but I'm just going to go through a couple for the next 5 to 10 minutes. So they're showing here how you can set this up. So notice 6 and 6. In other words, each one takes up 50%. Then they do a 4 and a 4 and a 4. So each one takes up 33.33%. Then they do a 4. What does that mean? It means it's going to take up a quarter each. So these are each taking up a half. These are each taking up a third. These are each taking up a quarter. And they show you the code that you'd put in for how to use this. Now, you might look at this and say, okay, I sort of get it, or maybe I don't get it at all, but I probably could if I looked at it long enough. But who really cares? All right. And the answer to that question is a lot of people. There are millions of websites out there that have been created using Bootstrap. Bootstrap's original name was Twitter Bootstrap because it was created by a couple of guys who work at Twitter. I think since then they've left Twitter, but I'm not even sure. It's not that big a thing anyway. All right. So it says here stacked and horizontal, from stacked to horizontal. Okay. So it says This demonstrates a 50-50 split on small, medium, and large devices. All right, so you see what its width is right now. But notice if I change it, instead of being 50% each, now one is stacked on top of the other one. So how did it magically do that? Well, first of all, I have to put the whole thing in a div that's got a class of container. That's a special word for this. But we're telling it if our screen size is a small size or above, all right, if it's small or above, which I think is 768 pixels, show it like this. Once it gets smaller than that, so once it gets down lower than an SM, then automatically stack it for us. And that's exactly what's happening. It used to be back in the olden days, all right, back in the olden days, when you did this kind of stuff, you had to code it by hand, and it was a pain in the butt. It was even harder than those media queries we looked at. So when we look at these sizes, X small, extra small means less than 576 pixels. All right, so if it's less than that, so basically if it's cell phone size, that's col minus. Col SM means that it's greater than or equal to 576 pixels. All right, that's really bigger than probably any cell phone there is. Medium says it's greater than or equal to 768 pixels. Large says it's greater than or equal to 992 pixels. And XL says it's greater than or equal to 1200 pixels. So these are all numbers that the people who created Bootstrap came up with and said, these are what are known as our breakpoints. So the breakpoint to go from extra small to small is 576. The breakpoint to go from small to medium is 768. The breakpoint to go from medium to large is 992. And the breakpoint to go from large to extra large is 1200. And that's all based on the size of your screen. All right. So I'm not going to run through these, but they give you examples. There's small. So they talk about small, then there's medium, but they're showing you the same stuff. So if you were interested, you could run those. But right at the end here, they've got a thing that says grid examples. So they show you 3 equal columns. All right. And then they show you 3 unequal columns. But the point is, notice that when you use the 3 equal columns, it looks fine. The color's a little, but it looks fine. But when you get to a certain width, you're telling them not to go. We're never telling them here. We're telling it to always stay 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That's what we're telling it right here. And how do I know that? Because notice we never come in here and use .cols, dash SM or anything like that. We just use col, which means never, ever change the width. Always, regardless of how big or how small this is, each one of these should be the same size, and each one should take up 1/3. All right. But on the next example, they're unequal sizes. This is 1/4 of the screen. This is 1/2, or I'm sorry, 1/4, 1/2, and 1/4. So notice when I run this one and I make it smaller, it still keeps what it was. 1/4, 1/2, 1/4. Because again, when we did these, even though they're unequal, we just used col. We didn't use that SM. We didn't use the MD for medium, etc. So this takes a while to play with. Every single time I teach the web design class that I have for college students, I spend about a week on Bootstrap. I always learn something new. All right, because there's some, oh geez, I didn't realize you could do that type of an idea. So again, like I said, it changes all the time. All right. Now, one thing that we looked at, because we're going to take a break in 1 minute, but one thing we looked at over here last time was we grabbed this starter template. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. And even if you can't see it right now, don't worry about it. You will after the break. And I'm going to paste it in. Okay. All right. It is 9:50. So we are going to take a break as we have been doing for 10 minutes. Let me ask first, can you all see on the screen where I've got my mouse and it says doc type HTML? Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 9:50. Let's take a break and we're going to come back in 10 more minutes, please. All right, I'm going to ask one more time. Can everyone see on my screen right now? I've got some code on there and line 1 is highlighted in gray and it says doc type HTML. Can I just hear a yes if you can see that? Anybody?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Now, I'm not going to spend much time on this, but I do want you to understand something. That if you want to be able to use something like Bootstrap, you already know what all this stuff means right here. You know what all that stuff means because we've looked at all that stuff already. All right. But what's new? Well, Bootstrap has its own CSS. So it's got its own style sheet that you can use with it. Why am I telling you this? Why do you care? Well, you'll notice right here, this says CDN, and CDN means Content Delivery Network. What that means is, this is saying, hey, I want to use Bootstrap CSS file. It's out on the internet at this address. You go find it, let me use it. The neat thing about that is it doesn't load it onto my machine. It just goes and grabs it from the internet. That's the good news. The bad news is if I'm someplace that doesn't have an internet connection, all right, I know there's not that many of them, but a lot of cars don't have an internet connection. All right. So you typically need a full internet connection to actually access this. Now, you don't have to use one of these CDNs. You can literally go out there and grab that file and copy it onto your machine. And a lot of people do that. But if you do that, it takes longer to load onto your machine than it does for it to go out to the internet and grab a reference to it. All right. Then we've got our title, which is just hello world. And honestly, if you run this, this is the only thing that shows is an H1 tag that says hello world. All right. Then the other thing that's in here is it says you can either choose this or you can choose this. What's the difference between them? Well, if we start to look, whoops, they look very similar to each other. All right. In that, if we look right here, well, Jquery and Bootstrap bundle. In other words, this here and this here are the same as these two, basically. I should say that again. Line 19 and line 20, so lines 19 and 20 are basically the same as what you've got down here in 24 and 26. So what's different between these two? And it's line 25. And you can see it uses a special file called Popper. And what that does is if you want to create pop-ups, and if you say, I don't have any idea what a pop-up is. Yes, you do, because believe it or not, today you've already seen one. So I'm going to quickly show it to you again. Let me go in and change my share again. And go back to here. All right. And when I click contact, that's a pop-up. All right. There's other kinds of pop-ups, but that's the simplest type, basically, that there is. All right. So I want to talk about a few of the things that are in here. You can see how many there are. I don't want to go and waste all your time going over every one of these, but I want to talk about a few of them. Where it says get started, guess what? That's the thing that I just had you download, basically. They've got a little different one, but it's pretty much the same thing. So if you actually download what they put on here, this is what you get. My first Bootstrap page, and notice it breaks it into 3/3, and notice as I start to shrink them, that eventually it stacks. So again, in other words, what Bootstrap is designed to do is it's designed to give you responsive website design, RWD, which again means it should look pretty nice, whether you're looking at it on a phone or on a computer or a tablet or whatever it is you're looking at. It's just built into the language. One of the things that you need to do to build this into the language is you need to have a container. Now, I'm not going to go over these numbers again because we already looked at those. But notice the difference between a container, which has space on the sides, evenly spaced out, and what's called a container fluid. With a container fluid, it still gives you a little bit of space on top and on the bottom, like you can see, a little bit of white space. But the width is naturally, it takes up 100%, regardless of what you're using to look at it. Sometimes you want a site to literally take up everything. So again, I give you the same example. Imagine this stuff wasn't here, and this section that we have right here took up the whole thing. That would be a container fluid. The way it is right now, it's a container basically. Why? Because we have ads over here, we've got content over here, but our main content is just in the middle. All right. So as it says, you use the dot container to create a responsive fixed width. And again, it has those numbers. So they give you a real simple example of this. All right. And when you look, this is a class container. And you notice that even when I shrink it down, it's got a little bit of space in here. It might not look like a lot, but it's got a little bit. And when I come in here and look at the other one with a container fluid, all right, and I go and run it, and I cut it down, you don't see much of a difference. And the reason you don't see much of a difference is what we've got here is text. If we started working with images, you'd start to notice a difference right away. All right. So grid basics, I've already talked to you about these, so I'm not going to do that again. There's their picture. It's very similar to the one I showed you before. Those are those different Bootstrap classes, the ones I showed you before. All right. And the example is pretty much the same as well. Where this package really starts to shine are in the next few things we're going to look at. The first one is typography. All right. Now, notice H1 to H6. You're like, I know what those are. Yeah, you still use them. And you pretty much use them the same way. So if you look in here, what do we have? H1s, H2s, so you can still use them the same way we've used them. So when these developers created Bootstrap, the idea was what they did not want to totally reinvent the wheel. They wanted you to be able to use some of the stuff that people had been using regularly with HTML. But then they also wanted to give you more stuff. Like what? Like this. All right. These are the built-in color types that you have. You can still use all those nice little colors that we had talked about before. You can still use RGB. You can still use hex codes. You can still use different words for colors. But whether you're working with text or whether you're working with hyperlinks or whether you're working with buttons, you can use these colors. So text muted is a light gray. Text primary is this blue. It's a medium type of blue. Text success is green. Text info is a little different kind of blue. So you can see the difference between those two. Text warning, it's kind of like yellow, like if you're going through a yellow light. It's kind of amber in color. Text danger is red. Now, none of these look like they're very bright, but you can also add bolding to that to make them brighter. Secondary is kind of a lighter gray. Secondary looks a lot like muted. Then there's a darker gray, and then there's the black that you get by default. But again, the key takeaway from this is you can use this on text, you can use this on hyperlinks, you can use this on buttons, you can use it on virtually anything and everything that you want to use it on. And it becomes really nice. Now, we talked a little bit the other day about tables. Notice virtually everything that you create in Bootstrap is a class. So it starts with a period. So if I want to be able to add the table class, I come in here and let's look at it here. I say, where is it? There's my table, class equal table. All right, and this is kind of important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this, and you see what the table looks like. Now I'm going to take off where it says class equal table. Now I've removed it, and I'm going to run it again. That's a pretty doggone big difference. So what you get built in or baked in, so to speak, with this is that. Now I can go in and add other classes. For instance, I'm going to type in here table dash striped and watch the color of my rows. And you can see how every other row changes color. So Bootstrap is just a big, humongous collection of hundreds of classes. All right, so they show you the striping that I just showed you. You can put a border around it, and there's other stuff that you can do too. All right, then images. Notice the difference between these. These are 3 of the different kinds of images that you can use. The first one, they've added a little bit of rounded corners by putting the rounded class in there. Hopefully you can look at that and kind of see that it's a little bit rounded. This second one, no, that's not a rounded class. All right. So the second one, you used rounded circle. So you made it a circle. And the last one, you used the thumbnail class. That does not make it real little by using the thumbnail class. What it does is it puts this little faint border all the way around it. And again, we can run through these, but I think you all get the idea. All right. It says to float an image to the left and float it to the right, you use float left and float right. You can still use these floats. You can still use those. All right. And you can float text around them, etc. I'm not going to say any more about that. All right. The next thing that's in there is a Jumbotron. So I'm going to show you this. That's a Jumbotron right there. All right. If I had changed this from container, which is what it is, to container dash fluid, and I run it, notice how now the Jumbotron takes up almost the entire width. So again, if you want that, that shows the difference between container and container fluid. Many websites today have something that's on the top of them, underneath, to kind of catch your attention. Like what? Like this. There is my Jumbotron. It doesn't have to be gray. You can give it any color you want. You can add text in here. You could literally, if you wanted to, you could put a slideshow in here. As you see, you can add buttons in here. It's your website. So literally, you can put anything that you want to put in there. All right. It's totally up to you. All right. Alerts, kind of what you might think they are. If you put in an alert, it puts this up on the screen. And if you set it up, and I'm going to show you it in a minute with the X like this, when you click it, it goes away. So I can remove all these by continuously clicking all of those X's. So let's take a look at one of the ones that's in here. All right. It doesn't matter which one. We'll just grab one of them. But notice all we have to put in here is class equal alert. And we changed it. We also added the class alert success. So if we change this from alert success to alert danger, and we run it, you can see how the color changed. But by default, which means unless we tell it otherwise, we can put any code in here we want. All right, and so this one would indicate a possible dangerous situation, whatever it happened to be. And you can see how it changed. All right, and it also takes those first words, all right, since we put them in a strong, and it bolds them basically. So you can put in here anywhere, anything you want. Why do you use these? basically you do them to, as it says, you give predefined alert messages. If somebody's about to do something, you could come up, and if they said they wanted to delete a file, you could put an alert up that says you are about to delete this file. If you're sure you want to do this, click the X or whatever. All right, just as an example, those are some of the things that you can do. All right, buttons. Now notice, these are those same colors that we looked at before. Hopefully you can look at this and understand the width of the button, how wide the button is based on the text you put inside. So where I've got info here, look at that, it's pretty small. I'm gonna hit the space bar, 1, 2, oops, try it again. I gotta do it in here. So I'm gonna hit the space bar. That's not the one we want. Try it again. There, where is it? There it is. All right, so I'm gonna hit the space bar where it's got the word info, and I'm gonna hit the space bar twice before info and twice after info. Let's see if it changes its width. And it didn't. How about if I come in there and use those characters we all know and love, NBSP, for non-breaking space? So if I put in one of those at the beginning, or two of those at the beginning, and then I put in two more of them at the end. All right, and now I run this. Now it got wider. Why am I telling you that? Well, what happens is sometimes people, I've seen this in sites, people get so carried away with the colors, they get so carried away with the colors that their buttons are of different sizes because it's got different text. Well, one way to fix it is what I showed you. But you know what? That's what's called a hack. In other words, it'll fix it. Okay, it'll fix it, but there's got to be a better way to do that, isn't there? And the answer is yes. You go into your own CSS and you go in, and for this class, notice these class names. Every one of these has got a class called BTN for button. That's this one. And I know it doesn't even look like a button, but it is one. Then we've got a button plus button primary. That's this one. A button plus button secondary, etc. All right. But you can go into this button class. I could go in and, for instance, I could make the height and the width of every button the same size. Then I could put in any color I wanted and any text I wanted, and the buttons would always be the same size. All right. Also, it is really important. This is a light one, so notice nothing happens until I put my mouse over it. The other thing is you can take a link and make it into a button. Now, it doesn't look like a button now, but with very little work on your part, you can take a hyperlink and make it look like a button. It's kind of nice. You can group buttons together. That's all I'm going to say. You look at it right here. You say, why would you want to do that? There may be a reason that you want to do that. All right. Badges. Hopefully you've all seen stuff like this. All right. This example they give here is not a good one. But for instance, if you are working on an assignment and you're halfway through it, you might get a badge that says you've completed 50% or something like that. All right. And even though they don't show it in here, they've got badge, secondary, etc. Well, could we come in here and put in badge danger? Well, I got to come into here. And can we take this first one and make it badge danger and run this? The answer is yes. So we can use any of those same colors that we had looked at before. They made all these secondary, but we could make this one primary, etc. I'm not going to go run through all of them. And you notice how they change. All right. But again, badges are typically used to give some additional information. And a lot of times, especially when you're working on programs where somebody needs continuous reinforcement, you might use that. All right, progress bars. I live in Lake St. Louis, Missouri. The reason I'm telling you that is if you drive by the Lake St. Louis, Missouri City Hall, the week, probably about the month before the 4th of July, they've got a big chart that somebody made by hand that says what percentage of people have donated so that they can have fireworks. because they try to make sure they don't have to spend any of their own money. And they've got like a progress type of indicator here. So this would say maybe it was about a quarter of the way. Here it's halfway. Here it's at 100%, etc. And notice all you do is you put a width in there. So we come in here, there's 70%. You can already see, I mean, I'm not surprising you here. If I change this to 10% and run it again, it goes way down. All right. If it goes up to 90%, of course, it goes way up there. All right. And I think you can put a number greater than 100. So I could put in 125, but it only shows through 100 by default. All right. Spinners, a lot of people like this kind of thing. All right, as it says, to create a spinner loader. It used to be that, especially when you were working with Microsoft software, that what would happen would be whenever you were downloading some software and it was going to take a while, you'd get what looked like a little timer and it would spin. Just go back, like this one is doing right here. That would tell you that something is going on. Well, if you are going out and loading a file from the internet, and let's say, for instance, it's a really, really, really big file and you know it is, you might use something like a spinner. All right. Pagination is kind of neat because if you've got something that's going to be in separate pages, you can go from page to page with that. This will get you always back to the first page. This will always get you to the last page. And there's different ways that you can set up pagination. Just leave it at that. All right. List groups, typically they're not used, but the next one, these are used all the time. These are called cards. And when they started with Bootstrap 4, that's when they introduced cards. Before this, they had something called wells, and there were other things you could use. And they were a lot harder to use. This is kind of neat, these cards. Because you'll notice if I come down here, all right, there's a basic card. You say, well, that's not much, but you can come in here and you can put in a picture, you can put in text, etc. In fact, in the example they have, a lot of times today on websites, you'll see stuff like this, where it'll say something like meet our team. And they might have 3 or 4 of these across, and maybe there's 12 people. And there's 4, then there's another row of 4, then there's another row of 4. And you work on it like this, and you put each person's name in, picture, their name, and either their title or maybe a quote from them. And right here where it says see profile, that might go out to, I don't know if they've got a home page or a LinkedIn page or whatever. All right. Drop downs, exactly what you think they would be. Okay. All right. Again, I don't want to run through every single one of these. Collapse will do just that. All right. What does that mean? Well, see that? It's kind of like that accordion that we looked at on one of the websites before. All right. Now, this is confusing. There's a nav and there's a nav bar. We've already looked at nav bars, but we haven't really looked at navs. All right. And a lot of times when you are using a nav, what ends up happening is what you can create from that. You may or may not have heard of this before, but it's what's called a breadcrumb. So in other words, if I go to a directory or a folder, and then I go to another one, and I go to another one, and I go to another one. So in other words, with what I showed you before, we've got this folder that's called Bootstrap in 13 steps. Inside of there, we've got a bunch of things that are called like, example, part 1, part 2, part 3. And inside of there, we've got a folder called images. Well, if I look for the breadcrumb, that will say that this is where I am. So I would be at the last one. I can back up as I'm going on my way through there if I want to do that. The nav bar is what you think. Nav bars are really, really nice in this language. That's all you got to do. All right. That nav bar that you see right there is right here. Okay. Now you say it's not the same thing because they didn't put in the search and they changed the names. But I can come in here and I can make this very simply. I could make this home. about, and let's say contact. All right, run it. There they are. Oops. And all I'd have to do then would be to link those pages in. Right now, they're not going anywhere, as you can see. All right, but it doesn't take much to set something up. You can do it horizontally, which is the way it's normally typically done, or vertically, if you want to do it that way. You can center it. You can give it colors. Notice how when you give it colors, what are you adding to it? Well, there's different things you can add. All right. In other words, again, you can add that primary color, which is this. This is dark. Light is like this. All right. So again, there's a bunch of stuff you can do with this. And I'm going to show you that when we start going over the example in just a few minutes. Then we've got forms. What's so nice about this is if I go back out here to the Bootstrap site, all right, and I go over to components and I go to forms, boom, it gives me all the code right there to create this form. It gives me all the code if I want a little bit more stuff in there. There's the code for that form, etc. They want you to use this. And a lot of times when you're learning this, it's a terrific learning tool. All right. Not much left here. So inputs, guess what? You know what these are. You've done the input type equal text. I showed you yesterday what a text area was. We have looked at checkboxes. We have looked at radio buttons. And we've even looked at the select thing that we did for states. So you can see the example. There's how you can set up a text area. There's how you can set up checkboxes. All right. There's how you can set up radio buttons. All right. And finally, there's a select list where you click down, boom. Now you can go in with your own CSS because this is pretty wide, but you can narrow that down if you want to. All right. So you've got a lot of control over this stuff is what I'm saying. You can group this stuff together. You can make custom forms. You can put a lot of this stuff in there. All right. See how you can literally have it move, etc. Carousels are really nice in here. If I was going to do a carousel, I didn't do one on the site we're going to go through. I didn't put one in. But if I was going to, I'd go right here and grab all this stuff. I'd grab this whole thing and then just substitute for their images my image. And notice that typically with a carousel, you've got 3 ways you can work your way through here. It's on a timer, so if you wait long enough, it will change. Or you can click the arrows, or you can click the dashes that are down here. These dashes back in an older version, all right, used to be dots or periods, and I think they may have made them periods again. But you can even change that yourself if you want to. All right. You can create modal diagrams. Modal means, I'm going to show you, I'm going to run this. All right, this is a modal. I can't, once I open the modal, I can't do anything in here technically until I close the modal. I can click close and boom, or I can click here and boom. So if you want the user to kind of be stuck in purgatory, so to speak, while they're trying to do something, all right, then what you do is you typically create a modal. All right. Tooltips are kind of what you think they would be. So you put your mouse over it. Notice it says hooray right there. That's the tooltip. You can put them over buttons. Typically, you can put them over hyperlinks. You can put them over anything, really. Those are probably the 2 things that most often you'd use a tooltip for. Then popovers. They are a lot like tooltips. All right. But you have to click on it to make it show. And it toggles, which means you click to show it, you click again to make it go away. All right. Whereas with a tooltip, it's done with putting your mouse over something or moving your mouse away from something. Okay. A toast. Typically, it's something small. It's a little alert that usually only shows for a couple of seconds. All right. And then you can make it go away. Let's see. And this isn't that big a thing here, but just so you know, they're used a lot too. If you've got an Android phone, I don't have an iPhone, so I'm not sure if this pertains to iPhones or not, but on an Android phone, a lot of times, if you do something and you get a short little message on the bottom of your Android screen, be it a tablet or be it your phone, and it goes away, that's done using a toast. All right. There is Scroll Spy. And as it says, it's used to automatically update links based on scroll position. So notice I'm scrolling through here. And as I'm scrolling through, if I'm at the top, this, what's in white here says section 1. When I get to section 2, it changes. When I get to section 3, it changes. Section 4, it changes. All right, you don't have to use that, but it's kind of neat. There are a lot of built-in utilities here. I'm not going to run through any of them. One of the biggest things that you can do with Bootstrap is you can use what's called Flexbox. All right. And Flexbox, rather than using floats, you use Flexbox, and it makes it much, much easier for you to go and lay out what you want to have on your screen. All right. All right. Just a couple more, as you can see. Icons. All right. You may or may not know what these are, but FA stands for Font Awesome. When we did the Call Me Mo site, all right, when we did that, we had some of these icons. So if, again, I'm not going to do this. Actually, I can. But if I go out to Font Awesome, all right, and I look at the icons, I can bring in these icons. And you'll see, again, I talked about this the other day. Some of these are grayed out and some of these are not grayed out. The ones that are grayed out means you have to pay for them. And if I put my mouse there, you can see in the upper right corner, it says Pro in blue. This one I can use for free. This one I have to pay for. I think that it's like $50 a year or something like that if you want to pay for them. All right. I don't really know. I've never done it. The free ones work fine as far as I'm concerned. All right. Media objects. So again, if you want to go and put in little pictures like this, etc. And filters at the end, it says Bootstrap does not have a component that allows filtering. So if you want to use that, it says you can use Jquery to filter. That has changed in Bootstrap 5. Just so you know, and I'm just trying to be complete here. There is a thing that's called Jquery. All right. And that's its website. It's a very ugly website. But what Jquery allows you to do, it's a JavaScript library that allows you, it kind of, for lack of better words, sort of supercharges CSS. So it gives it almost superpowers to do a lot of things it couldn't do otherwise. Like what? If you really wanted to know, and I'm not saying you do, but if you really wanted to know, you'd go out here where it says API documentation and you'd click on that. Then as I scroll through here, these are all the things that you can do using Jquery. You can write your own code to do even more things, but these are the 100 or 200 or whatever it is that you get by default. Plus, Jquery has a thing that's called a user interface. So if you go out to jqueryui.com, it's got things, if you remember, like this accordion. So there's an accordion. All right, well, what's so cool about that? Well, if I click here where it says view source, they like you to come out there and grab their code. So I'm going to grab their code. I'm going to save it. I'm going to go out here where I had this thing and I pasted it in. All right. Now I'm looking in here. This doesn't work where it says // All right. So I'm going to try to, I don't know if it's going to take this or not, but I'm going to change it to that. And I don't know. So I'm just going to save this. And I made no other changes. So I'm just going to call this accordion.html. And I'm going to save that and put it on my desktop. All right. So let me change my screen share here to screen. All right. I'm going to go to my desktop. And there's the accordion thing I just made. I'm going to double click on it. And you can see I didn't put in any code. I just grabbed stuff that was already existing out there. What Jquery actually wants you to do is to use their code and modify it accordingly as you see fit to do so. All right. Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to here then. Here and here and here. There we go. All right. So I showed you the main components of Bootstrap. We went over the grid system. That basic template we've already looked at. Some of the stuff, anything that starts in here, I'm not going to go over, but anything that you see in there that starts with JS means it's JavaScript specific. All right, so it even lets you do more things than you could do otherwise. Now, that's all I want to say from here. On this website, okay, I explained it because it had a bunch of code examples in there that we could go over. But if you were to decide you wanted to learn this stuff, all right, I'm collapsing some of this. You go to the get started, as they say, you go to the intro, you go to the download. That's the one I showed you before. All right. There's different ways that you can download Bootstrap. I'm not going to go over any of them. All right. But it shows you if you do download Bootstrap in different ways, what you get. If you're interested, take a look at it. Bootstrap is basically supported on every browser. All right, unless you've got a really, really, really old version of Internet Explorer, any browser that you have should support Bootstrap. All right, so let's see. I already mentioned the JavaScript stuff. I'm not going to hit it again. What's neat about Bootstrap is Bootstrap has built-in themes. It's got some that are built in. It's got other ones that you can use without having to pay for them. So I'm going to go in, I'm typing in here free Bootstrap themes. All right. And one of the first ones that comes up is startbootstrap.com. Okay. And it says browse these. You're going to go through these and many of them are going to say free afterwards. So literally, you can click on it to download it. I'm not going to do that. Sometimes when you go through here long enough, they won't all be free. So notice the pro. So it's going to cost you some money. You're like, well, I don't want to spend money. There's a one that a lot of people use that's called Bootswatch. All right. These are all free. The problem with these is there aren't that many of them. You can say, oh yeah, there's pretty many. There's probably about 40 or 50. The problem that sometimes people run into is they're like, wow, I'm going to go out and use one of these free themes. Some of these themes have been used so often by so many people for so long that people who are professionals can go out and they can tell that people have done this. All right. And they've gone out to Bootswatch or whatever. But there are lots of these things. There are also people who make a living. So you can go out and you can say, custom Bootstrap themes. And there are people out there that will make a theme for you to have it do anything in the world you want it to do. All right. But you've got to pay for it. And there are people who make a living doing that. All right. So let's see. One key thing about Bootstrap, and I just want you to know this, one of the reasons it was created is it's got built-in stuff for accessibility. So if you've got people who have any kind of an impairment, if they're blind, if they're deaf, if they're partially blind, all right, etc. Bootstrap has got stuff that's built in for them to be able to use, to use a Bootstrap setup website easier. The layout, it's pretty much what we just had already gone over. The different sizes, and again, the fluid, the responsive breakpoints and where they break. So you've seen all that already. All right. Now, Z-index, I don't think we ever talked about, and I just want to mention it because, again, it's the last day I'm trying to tie stuff together here. What you have with Z-index is if I go and see if I can show you something. Let's see. I can probably show it to you like this. So let's see. I'll go here. Can you all see a white screen on your screen right now? Is it all white?
Yes.
Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. So if I come in here and I decide I'm going to put in, oh, where is it? Some shapes. Okay. So I come in here and I'm just going to grab a couple shapes just so you see this. So I come in here and I grab this. So I've got that. Okay. No biggie. So now I come in and I go and I want to grab another shape. Okay. Wish I wouldn't have done that, but design, insert. There we go. So I go to shapes. Now I want to go and grab a square. So I do this. I think you'd agree that the square here is in the foreground and the circle is in the background, or the ellipse, whatever you call it. Now, if I do it the other way, now it's the opposite. Okay. And you could tell better if I went in here and changed the color. All right. But if you create a document or a web page and you have something called the Z index, the bigger the number you put in for the Z index, the more it comes forward. And the smaller the number, the more it gets pushed to the background. So if I wanted to make sure that this always showed, and it's being hidden now, and it's being hidden, I mean, you'll see it. If I went and turned this blue and I turned this black, now you still can't see it because it's hidden behind it. But if I change the Z index, then this would always be in front of it and you would see it. So that's what Z index is. All right. We didn't really go over that, any of the stuff we created, but it's a fairly important concept. All right. The grid system, again, we've talked about, etc. There are so many utilities, so many things that are built into Bootstrap. It's almost incredible. All right. Just the literally not hundreds, but thousands of things that are built in. Content. All right. We've already talked typography. You can literally put in stuff that looks like computer code if you want to. We looked at the images. All right. They're using very simple things in aligning images. We looked at tables. All right. We looked, a figure is just basically an image. This is the biggest thing. And we already went through this. I'm not going to jump through this stuff again. But if you want to see it again, the buttons, the badges, etc., it's all in there. All right. So I guess that's pretty much it as far as what I want to talk about these two things. So what I'm going to do next, one of the things that you got included in the what I just gave you this morning was this Bootstrap cheat sheet. It's kind of a neat thing. So for instance, if I want to learn more about using, let's say, a form control, I click on it and notice what it gives me down here. It gives me a code snippet and then it shows me what it'll look like. I mean, that's a really nice thing to have when you're trying to learn this stuff. So it's like, man, I want to do an alert, but it's got to be dismissible and I don't remember how to do it. You click on there and boom, there's the code and there's what it'll look like. And there's the X, so it dismisses. All right. So the first iteration, like I said, I built this site in 13 steps. So the first iteration, all I did was copy that Bootstrap template that we talked about before. And just to show you, oh, why is it telling me it can't be accessed? All right. I've got it here too, so hold on. So this first one, that's all it is. All I did was I brought in everything and I commented the wazoo out of this. So you can see everything that's happening in here. All right. So that was the first one. That's all it does. Not really much of anything. Okay. Then in the second version, so I can close that one. In the second version of this, I added this. So all I did in here, was I added a navigation bar. This area that's in here it's typically referred to as your brand. People put a logo there if they want to. You could have a logo and an image there. You can put just an image there. You can put anything you want. All right. And when I set this up, I told this to be pushed off to the right. All right. So that's all that's on there. So that second iteration of this, the difference between the first one and the second one is I started to add some Bootstrap. And there's the Bootstrap I added right there. Okay. So I want to quickly explain what this thing does, because people get confused. This code that you see right here in gray, if I go and run this and I make this smaller, you see this thing right here? Can everybody see that? I mentioned it's called a hamburger menu, and it brings up this. That hamburger menu was created with these lines of code right here. All right, basically everything that's in here. The brand, I already told you that's what it's called. So if I didn't want it to say Ranken Technical College, I just wanted it to say Ranken, I would remove that. All right, this is the actual navigation bar itself. And I told it to take the navigation things and push them off to the right, because by default, they're shown on the left. All right, so I'm not going to save that. And I'm going to jump back in. So that's iteration 2. Then in iteration 3, it's the same thing, except now I added a footer on the bottom of the page. And I added the simplest footer possible that's just got my name on it. It's got my name. I put Jeff Scott Inc., a copyright symbol, just so you know. We sort of looked at this, but I want to make sure you hear it. And that is, to actually show that copyright symbol, you say ampersand copy. Again, we looked at that very quickly the first day. That's called an HTML or a hypertext markup language entity. That says put a copyright symbol, which is the little circle with a C inside of it. One thing, just so you know this, because I've never mentioned this before, you really should, if you're creating a website and you don't want somebody to steal your website, you should in your footer put down, you know, who you are, etc., and then say something like all rights reserved, which means you created it and you're not giving other people the opportunity to use it without your permission. Okay, enough said there. So if I jump back into the code, all right, and I look at the code for that one, what's new there is on the bottom of the page, okay, that's it. That's where I put my footer. And again, I told it to push itself to the left, and before it had the thing to move it to the right, this pushed it to the left. All right. Then in the next example, it looks very similar to this one, except down at the very bottom, I added this. You're going to see this in just a second, but this is the stuff that I added, the social media stuff that's there. And I told it where to go. So I said, go to Ranken's Facebook page, go to Ranken's Twitter page, go to Ranken's Google Plus page. So in other words, by giving it an href, I'm telling it to go to that page. And by giving it that target equal blank, all right, I am telling it that I want it to open up in a new page. You learn that really pretty much on the first day. So when I go back here now and I close this one and I go to the next one, there's my Facebook stuff. I could have changed the colors, but notice if I click here, it's loading, but it's going to Ranken's Facebook page. And the other one is still open. If I go here, it goes to Ranken's Twitter page, but the original is still open. If I go here, it goes to Google Groups. We don't have a Google Group page, I think, anymore. All right, we used to, but I think they removed it for whatever reason. All right, it is 10:50. Let's take a break. When I come back from the break, we're going to finish this up, which should take about a half an hour, and then we'll be done. So let's take a break for 10 minutes, please. All right, I'm going to finish this up. I do want to mention to you one more time, you will all be getting an email today. You know, you have been getting them from me every day. And again, it'll have the URL on there for the for the presentation because I'm taping it right now. But there's 3 reminders on it. All right, so I'm going to see if I've got that up here. And if I do, I'm going to change my share to that. Let's see. All right. So I'm asking, can you see on the screen? I've got a line that's highlighted now. It's in blue and it says for the last time 3 reminders. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Again, so far 2 of you have sent me your picture. If you do want your picture to be on the website, then you must have your picture taken and email it to me by Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Wednesday morning, I'm going to try to create this website. All right. Second, if you want your Mobilize website that you've been working on the last 2 days, if you want that to appear on the website, you've got to zip it. And I went over those steps this morning. And again, it's got to be to me, emailed to me by Wednesday at 8 a.m. Finally, again, by now, you should have all gotten the evaluation form from Ms. Bragg. Okay, I did talk to her yesterday. You may have even heard me talking to her because she kind of started talking while you guys were working on your assignments. She said, yes, right now the plan is for next fall, for next summer, that these classes will all be in the classroom. Again, in the past, they've given t-shirts. So for instance, I remember 2 years ago, the group I had, our t-shirts, we kind of looked like pumpkins because they were orange with black writing. Another year, they were yellow with black writing. What's nice about that is then if there's 10 or 12 or 15 of you or whatever, we always meet in the same place every day. And you can tell who goes with who because they ask you to wear that shirt every single day. Also, it's kind of neat because one of the things that they have, if you say, well, this was okay, but is there other stuff you can do? Yeah, one of the ones that they've had that's always real popular is they have a thing where you learn how to work with go-karts. And then the last couple of days, you actually have go-kart races with real go-karts. And if you want to know more about that, you can contact Ms. Bragg. But usually after the first of the year, if you go out to the Ranken website, which is ranken.edu, if you do go out there, they start having information on the summer academies and you can sign up then. Okay, that's all I'll say. All right, so with that said, I'm going to jump back into here. So let me change my share again. All right, this is the 5th iteration. So right now I've got my header with my brand and I've got my nav bar and I've got my footer with my name and my social media icons on it. Now I have gone in here and I have added what? I have added the Jumbotron. So if I do click here to Bootstrap 5, it goes to the Bootstrap page. If I click here to Bootstrap 4, it goes to the older Bootstrap page that we looked at before. So in order to be able to do that stuff, okay, in order to be able to do that stuff, where are we here? It is there. Okay, yes. All right. We put in the Jumbotron. That wasn't really a lot of code right there. It's everything that you see here. But what do? You say class equal Jumbotron. Everything that you end up doing or just about everything that you end up doing in Bootstrap is in some kind of a class. So here we said we wanted it to be a Jumbotron and we wanted the text in that Jumbotron to be centered. So we have running Bootstrap example. All right. And then we just put in a paragraph. And then these are the buttons. So you'll notice these are hyperlinks. To turn these hyperlinks into a regular button, all we did was we added the class of button. And to make this one blue, we put in button primary. The other one is green, button and button success. So again, when I jump back to here, there's the blue one, there's the green one. We could have made them any color we wanted. All right, so that's the 5th iteration of this. All right, then the next one, iteration 6. Now you can see what I've done in here. I've added cards. There aren't any pictures yet, but I've got them 3 across. And that said, yes, they're 3 across, but as you'll notice, when this gets smaller, they shrink down. So this is really the first time in this example, all right, that if I look at the code for it, let me get rid of that because that one there. Okay, yes, I want that up here. All right, so these, I have to say that I wanted them in a row, and I wanted each one to take up 4 columns when it's a medium-sized device and above. So this is that first card, the HTML5 one. It goes to here. So it's what, about 20 lines. Then here's the next one, about 20 lines. And then here's the last one. They're all inside of a div, and that div has got a class of row, which means I want them all to appear on the same, in the same row. All right. So again, when you take a look at that, this is what you have. All right. Okay, so that's that one. Then in the next one, I don't remember what I did. A couple of these, I'm not sure exactly the change I made, so I'm just going to jump ahead to the next one. There we go. So I'm going to jump ahead here to number 8. So let me get rid of this. No. And let me get rid of this. I think that's 7. No. And I want to bring up 8. There we go. That's a yes. Okay. So now I've added pictures. I added images with these cards. Remember, it's totally legit to add an image. Now, what this does is if I click on this, it goes to that tutorial. And it does it in a brand new window. All right, so it goes, this is old, so that was Bootstrap 3. All right, I should be linking to the 4 one now, but I'm not. But you get the idea. So I can click on there. I can also click on the button to do that, just to show you how you can add stuff, all right, to make this act, work, etc., look a little bit nicer and a little bit more professional. Now, this is, I mean, this isn't a fantastic site or anything. And for some reason, my about page isn't coming up, and I don't know why, but it should be. And I'm going to try to see if I can fix that. But all right, so that's that one. All right, then in the next one, all I did was I changed the font type. It's got a little bit funkier of a font in there just to show you that you can add different fonts. All right. Then in the next one, not sure exactly what I did there, but again, one thing for you to see is I've got the special kind of button that doesn't light up until you put your mouse over it. Okay, just hold off on that one. Then the next couple, in fact, let's just go to the last one here. Whoops. So let me bring up 13. Give me a second here. This is the way that it should look. And you may or may not be able to see it on your screen, but I'm going to do a share on it right now so that you can. Okay. All right. So this is the whole shooting match, so to speak. So the about page has got a very, very simple, and I just grabbed 3 images. All right. So it's got 3 different images on it. That's the about. Again, you could swap those out, put anything you wanted in there. You could put another Jumbotron in. Usually when people have a Jumbotron, they only have it on the front page. You don't have to do that, but you can. I also added a little bit of animation. So notice that when I highlight this, it gets a look like it's, you know, we're bringing it forward type of thing. All right. And that's pretty much it. Now, a couple of you had asked questions to me in the chat window, but I'm before we finish up, I just want to make sure. Is there anyone who is planning on sending me their website that hasn't sent it yet and you don't know how to do it? Is there anybody still having problems? Would you like me to run over how to do that one more time? Or are you okay with it?
Could you run over one more time?
I'll be
so
more
I'm
than happy
100%
to.
clear?
I'll be more than happy to do that. Okay. I'm going to do that right now then. All right. Whoops. Screen sharing is stopped. Okay. I'm going to start the screen sharing up again right now. In fact, let me come down here and there's my Mobilize. I'm going to start it all over again. So let's see. I want to bring my Mobilize one back up. So let me do that and screen share on that. Can you all see my Mobilize right here? It says Mobilize AMP. Can you all see that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start all over again. So I'm going to start with a brand new site. I think you all know how to create a site. All right. But I'm going to create a new one anyway. And I'm just going to call this garbage because I'm going to get rid of it afterwards. Sometimes I do call things like that garbage. I'm going to click on Mobilize AMP and blank page. All right. It says, do you want to create it with Mobilize AMP and the blank page? Yes. So I click OK. Now I'm going to keep this real simple. I click here. I will add a menu. We'll just grab that one. I will add some features. Let's grab that one. I will add a video. There's that one. And oh, there's a video. There you go. So I've got a couple of them. That's fine. And finally, I'll just add a contact. And I'm going to add this thing at the bottom. So if I want to look at it, there it is. Nothing big there. Okay. Now, you don't have any saving or anything to do, but again, I call this garbage. So let's say that you did yours on cats. Some of you did. So then if mine was called cats, let's just say it was, I'd create a folder called cats. Since mine is called garbage, I'm making a folder and I'm calling it garbage. You don't have to call it the same name, but usually people do. So my site is called garbage and there's an empty folder right there called garbage. All right, now I'm jumping back into Mobilize. If I want to see what I'm about to save, I can preview it in the browser. So right there, there is what my site currently looks like. Okay, I can close it then because I don't need it to have it open in the browser anymore. So now it's only open here in Mobilize. So I want to click on this little cloud thing that says publish right there. And I want to make sure that I choose local drive folder. Click right there, then browse, and then wherever you save that file, mine was on the desktop and I called it garbage. So that's my folder. Right now that garbage folder is empty. As soon as I click publish, and now there's stuff in that garbage folder. All right, so in other words, and I'm going to change my screen share. So now in my garbage folder, I have in there my assets because that's got all my images and everything in there. If I look in there, you should never monkey around with that one. All right, so I've got that. Plus I've got my index.html file and the special file Mobilize makes. If I double click on the index.html, boom, there's my site again. All right, so you should all make sure if you're going to send me your site that after you do all this, your folder should have in it, I'm going to guess you have one or more images. So you should have an assets folder. You should have a folder called index.html. If you created more than one page, so let's say you've got an about page, then you'll have an index.html and probably an about.html. But you also need this Mobilize file. Don't open that. Don't dinker around with that one. That's a system file. After you've done all that, then you come back. Can you all see the picture of my granddaughter on the screen? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got garbage here. You right mouse click on it and you choose however you do a zip file. If for me, on a Windows machine, I right mouse click, I choose send to and compressed zip folder. Now I've got garbage and I've got garbage.zip. Now what I do on my system, yours might be different, but what I do then is I come in, and again, I'm going to quickly change my share because I want you to be able to see this. I'm using Outlook and you may be using something else, which is fine. I go to new message. I say, who do I want to send it to? jpscott@ranken.edu. And what's the subject? Website for, let's say that this was for John Smith. I'd like it if you put website, either that, somewhere, either here or down here, put your name in it. So if this is John Smith, you know, I want to know whose it is. I want to be able to put the right person's name with it. Okay. And then I go and I attach. And what do I want to attach? Garbage.zip. I attach it. I go ahead and I click send. Now what you're going to see up here in just a second, there's my website. Now the way that those steps that you go through may be a little bit different. All right. And I'm probably not going to be able to help you much because it depends on the type of computer you're using. It depends on the type of browser you're using. And it depends on the type of zip software you're using. All right. So the person who wanted it repeated, did this help? Is that what you were looking for? All right. Does anyone have any last questions then? Anything before we wrap it up? Because I'm finished. Any last questions from anyone? All right. Thank you for being a part of this. Enjoy the rest of your summer. And maybe we'll see you down the road. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.